Thank you once again. It's a pleasure to have everybody here, possibly tuning in from around the world. So I won't even say good morning, but good day. And this is a Meet the Authors World Bank Group Library event on a really important book that has recently come out, The ABCs of the United Nations General Assembly. You're going to hear from good friend Simon Pascal Alain Handy. He's a global thought leader and expert on international security and geopolitics, and this event promises to address crucial topics in the areas of global governance, politics, strategy, and more. My name is Richard Ponzio. I direct the Global Governance, Justice, and Security Program at the Stimson Center, a think tank here in Washington, D.C. Works very strongly, especially my program, on the multilateral agenda, and in particular the events of the last week in New York, the Summit of the Future, and the beginning of the 79th UN General Assembly. Just to say that in many ways this is a side event to the many events and discussions that have happened in recent days in New York and elsewhere to kick off the new General Assembly. For this book, I want to give you a little bit more background on Mr. Handy, and he's going to, of course, introduce the book, and we'll have time for Q&A discussion with all of you, so do think about questions you may wish to pose to our author today. Mr. Handy is CEO of the HCCP Global Think Tank based in Brussels. This book on the ABCs of the United Nations General Assembly, Navigating Global Challenges in a Fragmented World. It will take us into a deep dive into the past, present, and future of the UNGA, or UN General Assembly. In this work, Mr. Handy, with over 2 decades of hands-on experience in international diplomacy, he critically examines the inefficiencies of the UN General Assembly and proposes transformative solutions. His ideas span across integrating big tech into global governance to tackle the threats posed by AI, or artificial intelligence, surveillance capitalism, digital inequality, and much more. We're going to hear in particular about 2 very bold proposals, one dealing with a proposed new 7th committee. There are 6 committees, as many of you know, of the General Assembly, but a 7th new frontier, so to speak, that would deal with issues such as artificial intelligence, which he views as the gravest existential threat to human civilization and a transformative force of progress, something that has had outsized attention, I would say, in the context of the negotiations leading up to the major instruments of the Summit of the Future a week ago, in particular the Global Digital Compact, where Section 5 of the Compact goes into great detail about issues of artificial intelligence governance, but many of the 5 chapters of the Pact for the Future, the main outcome document, deal with these new technologies. Let me finish, since this as a way of introducing our speaker, by noting how important a book at any time, but particularly this time of great global tumult, wars ranging. We're going to certainly, I think, bring in the Middle East. Another major proposal, though, that we're going to delve into today is, of course, the war at the heart of Europe in Ukraine. And Mr. Handy has some very unique ideas on bringing that war to an end. Climate change, refugee flows, fighting global poverty. These issues are all at the heart of the work of what is arguably the most universal of institutions in global governance, the UN General Assembly. All 193 member states participate, all wield the one nation, one vote principle of the General Assembly, a notion of equality among states, big and small, rich and poor. And I'd like to conclude just by reminding everybody that critical Article 10 of the UN Charter, where it introduces, and by the way, the General Assembly is, of course, the first of the major 6 UN organs, 5 based in New York, including the Security Council, Economic Social Council, 1 in The Hague, the International Court of Justice. But the General Assembly stands first among equals, so to speak, and Article 10 states very unequivocally, the General Assembly may discuss any questions on or any matters within the scope of the present Charter or relating to the powers and functions of any organs provided for in the present Charter, and except as provided in Article 12, may make recommendations to the members of the United Nations or to the Security Council or to both on any such questions or matters. With that, I welcome you once again, and I'm very, very pleased to introduce again our distinguished author today, Mr. Handy. Thank you once again, and congratulations on your new book.
Thank you, Richard. Thank you for very encompassing and comprehensive presentations of the book. Just wondering if there is anything left to be said. But I'm very grateful for the World Bank Library, for Julia, for putting this together in such a short period, and everybody working diligently to make this event take place today. I'm very grateful also to the many staff here who facilitated the event. I'll go directly to the gist of the matter. There are a variety of reasons why you write a book, because the main question is, why are we here? Why the General Assembly? And why now? I believe that in 1945, when the United Nations was established, not a single state in Africa was independent. Most of the countries were still grappling with under the yoke of a nasty system of colonial rule, and therefore they did not have a seat at the table. And one of my guiding principles and philosophy have always been to have an Africa that can support, govern, and sustain itself, and that means moving from the menu to a seat at the table, because as you know, when you're not at the table, you are on the menu. So the ABC of the United Nations General Assembly, Navigating Global Challenges, is therefore very raison d'etre here this morning. We gather at the World Bank headquarters in Washington, D.C., the holy shrine of the global economy, with an impressive reservoir of knowledge, brain power, experience, and expertise on the most pressing issues of our time, poverty reductions, financing, infrastructure, climate change, and so forth. So the book is also the result of a personal pilgrimage of self-discovery, with the inner knowing that was brought into this world like everybody else to learn, but also to give back something to our common humanity. So during my time at the UN through intelligence assessment missions in a variety of field operations, I've always sought to associate the UN with the World Bank as well as the IMF, most notably on fragility assessment, financial and budgetary support, but also the IMF extended facility credit. And in 2010, in the Central African Republic, I was entrusted with the responsibility of establishing a specific portfolio within the Division of Political Affairs of the UN Peacekeeping Mission, and to monitor and mainstream, integrate into all aspects of the UN overall stabilization effort, the work of the World Bank, IMF, and other development bank. So after 12 years of relentless advocacy on behalf of the Bretton Woods institutions, bridging the gap and establishing concrete linkages, I feel at home here, particularly today. Now, it's been almost a quarter century since an African was elected as president of the General Assembly. Hence, in 2005, when the journey began with the 59th session of the UNGA, I was entrusted with the responsibility of drafting the concept note for a side event that would have, among other things, offered scholars and practitioners of international diplomacy a platform to share their views on the future of the United Nations. The conference did not take place, but a text was produced, planting the seeds of the current work. So we are also here today to generate a robust debate with a knowledgeable audience and offer a fresh focus, a sharp and critical analysis of the constructive narrative on an institution, the United Nations General Assembly, that is not always well understood. The book, of course, comes against the backdrop of a rich tapestry of the prolific international landscape. You have the 80th anniversary of the Bretton Woods institutions, July 1994. It is worth remembering that the World Bank and the International Monetary Fund was established in July 1944 in the fog of war, although it was in its last throes when visionary leadership was already shaping the financial and economic fundamentals of the new world to come before the end of the Second World War. So it will take then more than 2 years before the first session of the General Assembly is held in 1946 from January 10th to February the 14th at the Methodist Central Hall, Westminster in London. So as such, although the book is not about the World Bank and the IMF, the book is essentially about the United Nations General Assembly as the most inclusive, participatory, international diplomatic platform. But for the sake of our discussions, because we're at the World Bank, I have singled out some of the aspects of the book that might be of interest to the staff here. So I believe that the global titans of finance have a solemn responsibility to take center stage in the current debate pertaining to the reform of the UNGA and contribute massively to the formulation of a new world order that is more participatory, more equal and balanced, and in which, as its main client, Africa can govern, support, and sustain itself. So these institutions must do so as they came before, but also as an integral part of the UN system-wide effort. We are also here during a historic summit that you mentioned, the Summit of the Future that just took place in New York, yielding the Pact for the Future, the Global Digital Compact, and the Declaration of Future Generations. Furthermore, June marked the end of the petrodollar agreement signed in 1974, which has underpinned the global economy for half a century. The election, following suit to that, the election of Philemon Yang of Cameroon on 6 June 2024, just to mark the timeliness of the book and the background surrounding events. The election of Philemon Yang in parallel with growing undercurrents of discontent in the global south to address the perennial democracy deficit in the international governance structure, make it also a worthwhile endeavor. Philemon Yang comes at the helm of the UN a quarter century after Xi Jinping, who was elected in 2005. We are also witnessing, as a major factor indicator, the unraveling before our very eyes of the rule-based world order established in 1945, largely dominated by the 5 permanent members of the Security Council up until the end of the unipolar world, which I believe is around 2017. So from the killing fields of the Middle East to the Russian invasion of Ukraine, the future looks bleak, although nothing could be further from the truth. So when the first meeting was held in 1946 at the Methodist Hall, there were protests across London, hands off the church, people were protesting. But the world leaders came together, and what we are trying to do here is really to link the General Assembly to its foundational basis and what I call in political science a lost fact. The fact that the gathering took place in a church in a profound moment in the history of global governance, symbolizing the world aspiration for peace following the horrors of World War II. The Methodist Central Hall set the tone for the United Nations future, emphasizing that the world was moving towards a wonderful becoming rather than succumbing to the weight of its tragic past. The spiritual significance of this gathering was underscored by an inscription commemorating the event, dedicating it to the glory of God and highlighting a collective prayer for peace on earth. The mentions of Valentine's Day, February 14, when the historic gathering reached its pinnacle, carried a powerful symbolism of love, compassion, and unity, aspiration that the UN has sought to embody in its mission to foster global peace and cooperation. So the UN General Assembly was not just a political or diplomatic milestone, but a moral and spiritual response to the devastation of war, serving as a platform for hope, unity, and human progress. In reflecting on this historic event, we are reminded of the enduring missions of the United Nations, which is to transcend differences and build a more harmonious global future. The significance of the venue, Methodist Central Hall, lies not only in its role as a spiritual sanctuary, but also in its function as a thriving conference hub that embodies the values of unity in diversity. Moving to a different continent, and just to show a powerful example of the UN General Assembly as a platform for justice can be found in the case of Ruben Umniobe, probably not known to you, but he was a prominent leader of the independence movement in Cameroon. In 1952, UNGA appeared before the UN General Assembly to expose the atrocity committed by French colonial forces against the resistance movement in Cameroon. This appearance at the UN General Assembly showcased the Assembly potential to amplify the voices of the oppressed and colonized, providing a global stage for those fighting for freedom. However, UNGA's fight for justice came to a great personal cost. 1958, amid a brutal war, he was shot unarmed, his body was desecrated, dragged through the swamps of Cameroon, and subjected to further violence. This tragic fate reflected the deep injustices faced by the colonial subject, but his speeches at the United General Assembly remain a testament to his enduring legacy as one of Africa's most significant leaders of the 20th century, a homo politicus colossus, a huge mind, humongous mind, this big. He used the UN General Assembly to internationalize his struggle for freedom, highlighting the Assembly's potential to elevate regional conflict to the global stage. And I think that most people who are here are very familiar with the debate that has been ongoing for the last 5 decades about, the UN Security Council reform and the impact on the UN General Assembly. I think that the Security Council and the General Assembly represent two pillars of the UN institutional framework. However, the relationship is often complicated by the Security Council veto power and decision-making deadlock. Although the veto or the Security Council stalemate tends to be presented as a novelty, historical examples abound to express the fact that it's been always the case. For instance, I was looking in my research in 1959, the Security Council only issued one resolution and didn't meet for more than 2 or 3 months in 1959 before most of the African states were even independent. So this has been a long-standing issue. When the Security Council therefore is unable to act, the global community frequently turns to the General Assembly for its moral and mediating authority, to respond to the GA. So operating under the principles of one country, one vote, the General Assembly offers a more democratic forum, but is often hampered by the real-world dynamics of power and influence wielded by larger nations. For over 5 decades now, there's been ongoing debate about the need to reform the Council, particularly regarding its structure and use of the said veto. However, these protracted discussions have often led to stagnation in progressive thinking, as entrenched positions and lack of consensus have dominated the debate. And despite the urgency of these reforms, the Assembly has often been characterized by lengthy discussions without tangible outcomes. Reform of the Security Council is therefore vital not only to increase its transparency, inclusivity, and accountability, but also to allow for better representation, especially for regions like Africa, if they can afford the financial cost that comes with it, if they can put together a compelling strategy to sit at the table with a vision. The African group has consistently advocated for the 5 non-permanent, and 2 permanent seats on the Council, underscoring the importance of substantial representation rather than symbolic participation. The ongoing interplay between the Security Council and the General Assembly reflects broader issues of governance at the UN. While the Security Council wields binding authority through its resolution, the General Assembly plays a critical role in representing the voices of all member states. The imbalance between the two bodies, particularly with regard to representations and the use of veto power, has prompted calls for substantive reforms. These reforms are essential to addressing global challenges and ensuring that the UN remains an effective institution. I would like to recall that we have at least 12 bold recommendations in the book, and I will not dwell into them in the context of this conversation and to make room for people to be able to interact. They can just go to Barnes& and Noble or Amazon, but the book is on 60 platforms online, and they can have more extensive explanations of the concepts that I'm exposing. I'd like to go directly to the proposals, and I have actually selected two proposals. I fundamentally believe that behind the voguish calls for reform, because reform is a suitcase word that you can fit in anything that you want. Out of the 12 proposals for reforming global governance, with particular focus on the intersection of technology and international diplomacy, one of the most urgent and I believe visionary proposal, in my view, unassumingly, is the establishment of a seventh committee at the UN General Assembly that I have referred to as the Seventh Frontier. This committee would bring together big tech, the World Bank, IMF, and other financial institutions, but also member states, to monitor and regulate the accelerating advances of the fourth industrial revolutions. So the seventh committee would address key areas such as artificial intelligence, which is deemed now as the biggest existential threat to human civilizations, but also that carries great promises for human progress, digital ledger technology, central bank digital currency, the Internet of Things, cloud computing, surveillance capitalism, and cryptocurrencies. The reason that we have mentioned this is that 1945, none of these technological advances existed, and we cannot continue to manage and regulate the world with the instruments of yesterday. Of course, there's been an AI, Artificial Intelligence EU Act in March, followed by a UN General Assembly resolution, but these complex issues cannot be resolved by a single entity alone. And therefore, we believe that the most indicated platform where we can have a global and compelling regulatory platform should be the General Assembly. So the aim of the seventh committee is to ensure that the benefits of these technological advancements are not concentrated in the hand of a few, what I call the digital haves, but are equitably distributed to empower the digital have-nots, hence the connections with the Digital Global Compact of the Summit of the Future. The proposal represents also a shift from the traditional state-centric governance model to one that embraces a more inclusive approach, ensuring that the fourth industrial revolution benefits all of humanity and does not exacerbate the global digital divide. We have talked about big tech. Some of the big tech corporations today have financial muscles that surpass most of the state. And therefore, in order to have a balancing act, we believe that the international financial institutions that have equal power should be associated to this reform. The proposals also underscore the urgency of reforming global governance to meet the unprecedented challenges posed by technological advancement. So this will enable the UN to stay relevant in a world increasingly shaped by technology and ensure that the dividend of innovation are shared more equitably. In conclusions, the proposals that I have outlined in the book seek to address the efficiency of the UNGA and the shortcoming in this area and promote transformative solutions for global governance. It is more detailed. I go into more details in the book on each and how surveillance capitalism could be monitored, cloud computing, Internet of Things, and all of those new elements and so forth. So I would like to develop before I move into the second proposal, so very quickly, and then conclude. So the seventh committee dedicated to technological advancement and the global governance. So with the rapid evolution of the digital economy, advancement in artificial intelligence, blockchains, and other emerging technology have outpaced existing regulatory frameworks. This gap leaves then the global system vulnerable to exploitations, surveillance capitalism, as we have seen during COVID-19 pandemic, and widening inequalities. The proposed committee would focus on overseeing these technologies, holding to account of some of the big tech on the, through regular reporting, ensuring that they contribute to human development and peace rather than exacerbate existing divide. The creation, again, is not just a suggestion, Richard, but an urgent necessity. So by bringing together high-tech company and global financial institutions, including the World Bank and the International Monetary Fund, the seventh committee would help navigate the complexities of the fourth industrial revolutions. The committee would ensure the equitable distributions and the benefit, addressing one of the urgency of technological oversight and governance models that are lagging behind. Focusing also on surveillance capitalism and the monopolizations of digital resources. As I have said, recent global events such as the COVID-19 pandemic have illustrated how technology can both help and harm society. On the one hand, digital platforms have enabled remote work, virtual educations, and online commerce. But on the other hand, they have exacerbated the surveillance and that data privacy concern. So the committee would seek to balance this outcome, ensuring that technology is used for the betterment of humanity. We have talked about, the digital divide, how countries in Africa and part of South Asia remain severely disadvantaged in terms of internet penetration and digital infrastructure, further marginalizing vulnerable populations, bridging this divide by promoting policy and initiatives that bring technological resources to underserved regions. So they would involve partnership with government corporations and international organizations to ensure that digital resources are distributed. We have talked about the threat of surveillance capitalism, the fact that companies.
Allô? Oui, chef, je viens de la voir. Voilà, il dit qu'il est disponible, donc j'ai programmé.
Please kindly mute yourself. Whoever is speaking, please kindly mute. Thank you.
Est-ce que vous pourriez fermer votre micro, s'il vous plaît?
Merci.
We've talked about the future of digital currency, the central bank digital currency. So overall, in the end, this would be a platform for collaboration between government, financial institutions, technology companies, to ensure that the development and the use of digital currency are regulated, transparent, and inclusive. Now, I would like to, I'm not going to go into the ethics of technological development. I would like to go to the war in Iraq, because we looked at the functioning of the UNGA on a broad spectrum. As you are well aware, the resolutions of the GA are non-binding, but here we've seen an exponential increase in the productions of resolutions, never seen before during the war between Russia and Ukraine. And we have also seen the cost, $300 billion and counting. So we try to put together a compelling, technical, plausible peace plan, and looking at what $300 billion could have done for humanity or for a mid-sized country. And imagine for a moment what the world could have achieved in a country instead of spending these resources on conflict. As we've seen time and time again in complex humanitarian emergency, they say that if you believe that peace is expensive, try war. So we could invest them in development, building schools, hospitals, and infrastructure in the world's most vulnerable region. We could lift millions out of poverty in a single country, provide universal education, and ensure that clean water and healthcare are no longer luxuries, but right for all people. Education, 300 billion could educate millions of children, ensuring that the next generation is better equipped to tackle the challenge of the 21st century. Healthcare, we could build state-of-the-art hospitals in underserved regions, eradicating diseases that claim millions. So the cost of the war of Ukraine, currently estimated at 300 billion, draws a comparison to the $3 trillion war discussed by Linda Balms. I mean, I'm not sure if you know her, but someone that I met at Kennedy School during my senior executive program at Harvard University. The point being made here is that peace is far less expensive than war. So the immense financial cost of the Ukraine conflict could have been directed towards significant infrastructure development and social progress in a mid-sized country, showcasing how resources wasted in warfare could have otherwise been employed for constructive purposes. Now, those who want to learn about the peace plan, they can see it there. We shared it with the State Department. The Chinese took it also, as well as South Africa. So, although commendable, the General Assembly, instead of producing a laundry list of resolutions, could have also put on the table a comprehensive peace plan as a way forward. So the resolutions on the ongoing conflict have not provided any concrete solutions. Despite these numerous resolutions, the root causes of the Russia-Ukraine conflict remain unresolved. And we developed this comprehensive peace plan in the summer of 2020, outlining clear steps for achieving lasting peace between Russia and Ukraine. And it was against the background of a favorite speech in terms of warmongering. So the roadmap was shared with diplomatic missions from key countries. I think that China notably released a 10-point peace plan, without any citing the sources, and we found that the 10-point peace plan was lacking in substance and coherence. It was perceived as, more as a publicity stunt rather than a genuine framework for peace. In a surprising turn of events, the peace initiatives of various nations appear to be inspired by this roadmap through contributions that were now acknowledged. So it's a pioneering work that actually emphasizes third-party intervention, the inclusions of key stakeholders, the importance of addressing underlying grievances in the conflict, but it also draws attention to a new disruptive perspective from continents that have been historically affected by foreign invasion and intervention, offering unique peace solutions. It is built, reflecting the program of negotiations at Harvard Law School, getting to yes without giving in, where I was trained with the late Roger Fisher in a variety of simulation game. So finally, we have taken a significant thing. You're not stopping me.
Too engaging.
So this is, reinventing the UN. The post-Cold War era has seen the UN become a site of intense power struggle between developing and developed countries. So with the increase of UN membership from 51 in the 50s to 193 today, primarily due to the sovereignty of former colonies, developed nations were caught off guard. So they realized that the organization they had meticulously crafted in 1945 for the benefit has transformed into a forum where they were often outvoted and unable to implement their agenda. The end of the Cold War in the late 80s saw a concerted effort primarily by the US to reshape the organization to better align with their national interests. So we are now experiencing, and this is my conclusion, I believe, a geopolitical transformation with new centers of power emerging across continent. This transformation is driven by significant shift in state behavior and regional blocs, compelled by any information and technological revolutions that requires constant adaptation. As new power rise, those who can compete and adapt will shape the future international order. So again, what I said in my preliminary remark, in 1945, the world order was crafted without the participation of most countries, particularly those in Africa, who were absent from the process. These nations have since learned that passivity does not serve them well, and they have contributed in their own way to reorganizing the global system. Their contributions are grounded in the power of ideas, asserting their role in shaping a future that reflects their perspective and needs. The inception of the UNGA was founded on a profound purpose. It is worth reminding that, however, the UN journey is also marred by contradictions and injustices, leading to betrayal of its founding principle. It is crucial that we reinvigorate together the original visions of the UN General Assembly to realign the organizations with its missions of global peace adapted to the 21st century's governing world's affairs with the tools and mechanisms of today. Thank you, and I have spoken.
Thank you so much, Simon. Truly remarkable book. Really, the breadth, the depth, the ambition, the timeliness of a discussion about the UN General Assembly's central role in the international system as a whole, the United Nations up in New York in particular. And I know it's provoked many thoughts and hopefully questions from our audience, which we're now going to entertain with our remaining 20 minutes or so. I see as part of our group of participants, one of our key partners, Milton Nayadazwo from the Institute for Economics and Peace, where he directs their Africa program out of Nairobi. And I very much hope we'll hear from you, Milton, in the next few minutes. But let me kick things off with a question for our author about this pinnacle central proposal, the 7th Committee of the General Assembly to deal with the 4th Industrial Revolution. And I'm curious, of course, the book as a whole is about the General Assembly, but given the security dimensions of the issues around AI, why you called it one of the gravest existential threats, you didn't consider a role for the Security Council, the new Peace-Building Commission. Well, it's about 20 years old, created at another major UN anniversary, but specifically all these discussions in the Global Digital Compact of just recent weeks, where AI has come on strong. A new scientific panel will begin to advise governments. But yeah, there isn't a central governance body. So why would the 7th Committee make sense? And let me ask a challenging question, which is often countries, powerful countries, disregard the General Assembly because of the one nation, one vote principle that we spoke at the beginning. Very small countries have the same voice in casting a vote. It holds moral authority, but not binding enforceable law the way that the Security Council does. Why would this still, a 7th Committee, be effective on critical regulatory, but hopefully access, capacity building issues related to harnessing these powerful technologies for the benefit of humanity, while at the same time mitigating their risks?
Yeah, to be blunt, number one, the moral authorities and the legitimacies of the resolutions. You've seen around the resolutions that were taken about the war between Russia and Ukraine, the arm twisting that was going on, and the blackmail that was going on within the General Assembly from powerful nations trying to coerce other nations to vote in favor of condemning Russia. So the General Assembly remains in the context of gridlock, stalemate in the Security Council, the only global participatory global diplomatic platform that has and carries that moral legitimacy that can issue, norms in international, in international law, but also for global governance that everybody can regard and can look at being legitimate. So that was one of the reasons. The second aspect was that the difficult and painstaking process within the Security Council indicates that the addressing its democracy deficit and its enlargement will take more time. And therefore, there are more and more countries, as you've seen in the introduction of the book, I actually quote Naledi Pandor. There are a number of countries around the world that are increasingly moving towards giving more power to the UN General Assembly. There is, for instance, another proposal that we have put together with a 2/3 majority. We could have NATO acting as a buffer zone in cases of mass atrocities and genocide or complex humanitarian emergencies on a temporary basis, allowing then the council to continue to discuss and then find the solutions and not be held back by the stalemate. So my visions and my perspective from an analytical standpoint is that as we move forward, the strength, the legitimacy, the moral authority of the UN General Assembly will only increase. So that's why I believe that this committee should be there, but also because it's a platform that welcomes everyone, one country, one vote, then there will be less discussions about the legitimacy of decisions. But also I think that the rapid advances of technology, we need to confront big tech, to have a place where they can report regularly on technological advancement, where they can have a nurturing environment to have meaningful exchanges on these technologies and to ensure that they serve the betterment of the common humanity. And I think that the General Assembly can then be that forum and that platform where the world community as a whole, working together, can see how we can use the trickle down benefit and dividend the technological advances.
It's a very compelling argument, given the Secretary General's AI advisory body mapped the number of fora out there on artificial intelligence governance. 118 countries, most of the world's member states do not belong to any. So only a universal institution could maybe create those opportunities to engage. But I know I'm sure we have questions. Yes. And what I want to recommend is our colleague Julia to read a few, and then someone will pick and choose in responding to as many as he can with our time remaining.
You
Julia
can also help me out.
Yeah, and I will assist.
Well, Mr. Ponzio, at this time there are no questions in the chat. However, if anybody out in the meeting wants to unmute themselves,
if somebody wants to unmute themselves.
Oh, good. And we see our friend from Nairobi, Milton. Please kindly share your question or response to the book. And I hope you'll be downloading a copy of the book at the earliest opportunity. Over to you, Milton.
Hi, Richard. It's a pleasure to be here. This has been riveting to listen to. I will definitely be downloading a copy of this book. These are fascinating, progressive ideas. I think it's been a pleasure to listen to. I will resist the temptation to preface my question with a lot of my own comments and jump right into it. And my question is, do you have any separate reflections for the African continent and its own very complex regional economic bodies? So the African Union, IGAD, SADC, COMESA, and so on and so on. Do you think that this, the Seventh Committee will be something that's useful for them, given their configuration and how they work in relation to their respective member states, or more thinking needs to be done? Thank you.
Thank you, Milton. And let's also take a question from Victoria. Please kindly also introduce where you're speaking to us from, please.
Hello, my name is Victoria Zuba. I'm actually with the World Bank Group, to be more precise with UNGA, speaking out of Tunis. Thank you very much for this engaging topic. Myself being Ukrainian, I would like to pose a question as a Ukrainian, and thank you also for touching on that topic and referencing it actually in multiple times through this intervention. First of all, I wanted to inquire about this peace plan that you said you have put together and presented to a number of countries, China, South Africa, you've mentioned, the US as well. My question around that is, A, would it be possible to see a copy of that peace plan, or is it a part of this book? If you could please point me to that. And B, has this peace plan been presented to Russia? Do you intend to present it to Russia? And what do you think would be the response from Russia as the invading state to such peace plan? Thank you very much.
Great. So two excellent questions geared towards the two chief proposals. I know there are many more. I think you said close to a dozen in the book, but the two that were highlighted by our author. And I hope, we'll speak to both the 7th Committee, what it means for Africa, keeping in mind not only is the President of the General Assembly from Cameroon at the moment, as you noted, but the Africa G20 is coming up soon, led by South Africa, but now with the African Union, a part of the G20. It's a really momentous occasion coming up over the next 12 months to advance ideas that not only benefit the world, but as Milton framed in his question, how will it be useful for Africa? Over to you.
Yes, but I think that the overall rationale for putting the book together was also to give an Africa a voice, as I said, to have an Africa sitting at the table, no longer on the menu, and there's that significant move from the menu to a seat at the table that actually was the foundational one of the idea. As I have said, 1945, no singular country, no African country is in San Francisco. I mean, there were 4 countries that were represented. There was Liberia, Ethiopia, South Africa, and Sudan. But South Africa was still under the yoke of a nasty regime of apartheid and could not speak on behalf of Africa. Ethiopia was still busy representing itself. And then Liberia was a nation formed by former slaves coming from the United States, and that have not yet integrated fully the idea of speaking globally about Africa. So we have tried to narrow down the conversation of this morning to the World Bank, because, as I said, it's a holy shrine of the global economy. And I thought that, being here, we should just focus on the topics that speak to the people in the house. But there is a chapter on the second wave of independence in Africa in the book. There are a number of references. I think that if you really want to expand knowledge on the development that we have done, you should just get the book. I mean, it's available online and different platforms, Barnes & Noble, Thrift. I've been seeing it the other day in Denmark, in South Africa, and elsewhere. So, of course, the book was also echoing a call by Darren Walker from the Ford Foundation in the first general meeting, face-to-face after the COVID, who called for more global voices from the global South to speak up and speak out on the most pressing challenges of our time. So I always speak with Africa at heart. So the book is marinated with a lot of references to Africa, and I think that it would be useful for you to get the book. Now, concerning Victoria in Tunis, thank you for your question. I think that when we talk about peace and peace plan, people always forget that peacemaking is a technical process, where you have a reservoir and a toolbox of different ingredients that you put together, and at the center of it is the ability to use those tools to take into account the underlying grievances of both parties, integrate them together in order to put on the table a vision that can be lasting because it is balanced. And that's what the technical aspect is. Now, most oftenly, that technical aspect is subjected and submitted to the political realm, where now there's some arbitrations that have been done, but the way in which you construct the peace plan is something, I've been involved in high-level peace talks that have yielded political agreement. So I'm very familiar. So those are the tools that I use, but then I also combine them with the program of negotiations from which I inherited those techniques, with the program of negotiations at Harvard Law School, with the individual or the legend that invented principal negotiation, Roger Fisher, getting to yes without giving in. So, Victoria, if you'd like to acquire the book for the whole World Bank mission in Tunis, you will find the peace plan there. But the peace plan is also preceded by a thorough analysis of the conflict, outlining a variety of scenarios. Our idea was that in order to preserve the territorial integrity and the stability and the viability of Ukraine as a state, we needed to stop the bloodshed. because when you look at all the critical element in student strategic studies, you have artillery dominance, manpower dominance, hard power dominance. So I came to the conclusions in the heat of the war that even under the influence of hallucinatory optimism, there was no conceivable scenario under which Ukraine could prevail. And the only way to save the country was to initiate a peace deal that could ensure that, at least we have the return of the 4 oblasts. For Crimea, it's a different story. But my idea was really, how do we ensure that the country remains stable, that it becomes another Finland, that it remains neutral, but at least we stop, the killings and the possible disappearance of the country. Because the way we're going right now, the Russians are, just, butchering the country salami style, and whatever is going to be left of it can become just a ROM state that might not be viable. So it's really out of interest for the people of Ukraine that we put it together. But the peace process, once again, is a technical exercise with very well established mechanism that we put together. And then after that, the politicians, sometimes they do rather the contrary of what you have put on the table. But the technique never changes, taking into account underlying interests of both, underlying interests and grievances of both parties, and trying to come up with what they call the best alternative to a negotiated solution.
Thank you. And you need to not really remind this audience how central the UN's peacemaking role, why it was established in the aftermath of World War II. I would love to return and ask a final question on the subject of the Ukraine war, but broadly speaking, the peacemaking role specifically of the General Assembly. We do have several participants with us here at the World Bank Library in Washington. I would love to give them the right to ask the final question, and if not, I will jump in and then we will conclude. Anything you wish to ask our author?
Thank you so much. We just want to congratulate the author for this very, very important contribution on peace.
And if you can kindly speak up so that our colleagues online will be able to hear.
My colleague is going to bring you a microphone.
We'll bring the microphone over. Sorry, just 1 second for those online. We do have. Oh, and please kindly introduce yourself as well.
Yeah, I'm Emerald Serchminan. I'm senior environmental engineer working in MENA. So as you know, MENA is one of the countries in which we are facing a lot of problem now. We are trying to deal. This book is really timely, comes to help us to learn about what we can do. So my thought really is about the solution and everything that is proposed in this book, and then we can use. Really, when we are looking the way that international organization is working and the place of the bank to try to fight against poverty, that is our main mission, and to share prosperity. We know that is most of the vulnerable country is very difficult to deal with. is why we need to really collaborate with UN agencies in most of the country on which the bank do not have access. So it will be very, very good to go through the books and the recommendations that are there, and to ensure that as a development bank, we can better make use of what is recommended to be more efficient in the context on which things are going. So congratulations again to the author for this very helpful work.
And since that was an excellent comment, I would like to build on that, and Victoria's, to conclude by saying, we're here at the World Bank on the issues of peace. Many will remember another fine publication from 2017, The Pathways for Peace. Mm-hmm. It was really unprecedented, the amount of collaboration and research between the World Bank Group and the UN system, especially UNDP, Department of Political and Peace Building Affairs, Department of Peace Operations. And it really reflects, though, the breadth of our author's career on the front lines with the UN in the most challenging conflict zones, working on fragility assessments over many years that bring together the entire UN system, including the international financial institutions. But to tie everything back to the General Assembly with the final question, because I know we need to wrap up, the Uniting for Peace resolutions, is that something you speak to, activating that in the context of Ukraine, or the ever-enlarging war in the Middle East today, let alone Sudan and Haiti. I know you have experience in Haiti. And then the final point, we keep coming back to the veto power. Isn't it an important step that the General Assembly has taken through what's called the Liechtenstein Initiative to mandate the veto-wielding powers have to now explain themselves before all 193 member states every time a veto is lodged. In recent years, it's been, of course, about Ukraine, Syria, North Korea, Israel, most recently. And what other specific ideas in connection with peacemaking functions, most importantly, getting mediators in the field that are taken seriously, if they have the weight of the General Assembly behind them, would that make a difference? Is that what we're missing today to deal with some of these intractable conflicts?
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Thank you very much, Richard. As I said, I thought to come up with a seminal book about, bringing a fresh focus on an institution that is otherwise not very well understood. The idea was to reconnect with a couple of lost facts, the fact that it was born out in a church when people start protesting hands off the church in London. That's a significant foundation, but they also choose to end it on a day that we celebrate love, Valentine's Day. The other lost fact was, a platform for echoing injustices, as epitomized by the presence of Nyobe in 1952, December 1952, when he came to the General Assembly to voice the pressing challenges facing Cameroonians that were actually living under a very nasty, brutal colonial regime. That was not justified because Cameroon was a trusteeship, and that seminal speech that he made there showed that he was not only a strategic thinker, as I said, homo politicus colossus, humongous thinker, but one of the most quintessential and most defining political leaders of the 20th century in Africa, in the way in which he was killed and his body desecrated and so forth. That speaks volume about the ability of the UNGA to serve as a platform, voice of the voiceless. And the other critical event also that I wanted to mention too, and we're going to leave with that, is that the pricing of the book itself is $35.
Very good.
So that was an ounce of gold under the Bretton Woods Accord. That was actually the pinnacle of, the global economy, but before the petrodollar. So it's probably the only book on earth that has been precisely, I talk the thoughtfulness about the pricing, calibrated to mirror the Bretton Woods institutions and the ounce of gold. And as you know, the petrodollar agreement ended on the 9th June 2024 after 50 years. So it's been really conceived to speak to a variety of the most interesting, among the most relevant organizations of today, whether it's NATO, the European Union, the World Bank, IMF, but looking interestingly into what the GA is, that global participatory inclusive platform that will continue to serve the cause of justice and peace in the world. I have spoken.
Thank you so much, Simon Pascal Alain Handy. It's truly, there is a point of order from our colleague from the World Bank Library. Julia, please.
Well, it's actually a question.
Oh, a final question has come in.
Julia, you're doing technology. And
I'd like to give Meron a chance to unmute himself. Meron, would you like to ask the question yourself?
Meron, are you with us? Or was it also shared in the chat?
Are you still there? Yeah, okay. So being shy. So the question is this, very simple. At least you mentioned the price of the book, but Meron wants to know where you mentioned the word download. Where can you download the book? Or is it available? What formats is it available in? Is it an electronic version, or is it just paperback, hardback?
Yeah, the book is available paperback on 60 platforms, but some of the most prominent platforms, you find it on Amazon. Amazon is interesting because you have a read sample. So we have put one chapter and a half so that when you're hooked, we cut you off and you have to buy the book. where you have to buy the book, and then you find it, of course, on Barnes and Noble. And it's all five-star on Barnes and Noble. You find it on Thrift Books. You find it on Bruna. You find it on Take a Lot in South Africa. You find it in Denmark. I mean, almost on 60 platforms, more than 100 platforms around the world. You can get the book, no matter in what corner of the world you are. In Africa, Take a Lot covers South Africa. Bruna, Nordic. Bruna is a Netherlands, Nordic country. Denmark, Norway, Sweden, France, Belgium. And then here the book made its debut in the U.S. in June.
In June,
and then you can find it.
I think the answer, you heard the big names, Amazon, Barnes and Nobles, and others. But if you Google the title and where can I purchase a copy, I'm sure several of these platforms will pop up. But I'm sure that author would love to hear from you directly, so you can find him online and his institute. But at this time, let me thank all of those here in Washington, as well as those who stayed on for this riveting conversation with our author. Once again, congratulations, Simone. This has been an excellent discussion as part of the kickoff of the 79th General Assembly, led by a Cameroonian this time, and heading into Africa's G20 next year, 2025. Also, the 80th anniversary of the Bretton Woods institution is almost upon us, followed by, of course, the General Assembly and the UN. And these are all momentous occasions for these types of conversations. So thank you once again, and congratulations.
Thank you for your able stewardship of the conversation and for mentioning Cameroon in Kela. In Kela. So we have the president of the General Assembly, who's from Cameroon, former prime minister. So I think that's a distinctive position, and we have everything to be proud. And I think it's a timely combination that makes it a match made in heaven. And I'm sure that the book will continue to prosper. And I look forward to more robust discussions. It was on a short time basis, but I'm sure that with the annual meetings and Julia will find another more opportune time to reignite the debate and have ample time. Thank you for your flexibility for putting it together in 2 days. I've never seen that before. And maybe in November we'll have 3 months for advertisement. And I'm really glad.
Thank you.
That we initiated that here. As I said, this is the holy shrine of global economy, and being able here, I'm really humbled. And for the Stimson Center, I think that it's the basis for corporations now moving forward. I look forward to staying in touch. And Victoria, if you need any information on the peace plan, we can continue the conversation. And thank you to everyone who has participated online. I'm available for further questions, and have a great day.